If you saw the Saturday video that we did, we talked about if we're able to break outside over here, break out the trend line, we were looking at what the resistance above would be. And we talked about that $30,000 level right in this area. Sure enough, that's exactly where price has come into play. And it pretty neat too, as it's a perfect touch of that slightly sloping horizontal trend line. It's not horizontal, but it's almost horizontal. And it's a perfect touch to where we had it not only there, but also here. If you remember that we were looking at in the same video from Saturday, we were trying to give that awareness ahead of time of where things might be coming into play. And we talked about that importance of that 30,000 and change resistance. I don't even know what price it is, right? I mean, look at that perfect touch. Look at that perfect touch. A cloned one touch trend line, but you can't deny the market structure over here. And that remains the same. This is what we need to clear above for the next leg up to happen. Coming into resistance, expected and bullish, so long as we're able to consolidate around it and then make that next leg up. All right, today, now that we have resumed out of this pullback, Bitcoin putting in new yearly highs into the resistance that we expected. Remember that? That was beautiful. We're going to take a look today at what the next potential upside targets are. If we're able to break through the next area of resistance, where potentially Bitcoin on a big move could be targeting next. And then we're going to continue to make sure that we're aware of our risk. We're going to look at now what is a clearly defined breakdown. I hope you enjoyed this one. If you're new here, welcome. And if you're not, welcome back. This is Jordan with Conquer Trading and Investing. We're going to be talking about Bitcoin here. We're going to do that from a technical analysis standpoint. And we're going to make sure we do our best to bring clarity and stay on the right side. If you enjoyed the video, please do go ahead and hit a thumbs up. If you're new here, do subscribe, hit the bell icon. All right, let's get going over here. And I want to start off by taking a look at a little bit of checking in of where we are on that 4-year cycle awareness. We know in the previous 2 cycles, we have been able before the halving, this is the halving, every 210,000 blocks. Next halving is expected towards the end of April 2024. Price, after finding its low, has been able, you can see the low over here, has been able to retrace before the halving, tagging on the log scale that 0.786 retracement fib. It did it in the previous cycle as well. And we're wondering if it could do it this cycle as well. You can see that we're coming into resistance. We'll look at that in a little while. This was posted on January the 26th. I'm going to include in the description below this thread because this thread is quite neat. It goes back and it looks at the past behavior. It looks at the underbelly breakouts. We're talking about usually that is a massive bottoming signal, and you'll be able to make sure that you are able to go ahead and follow that thread that was included towards the end of January. We have over here what that would look like since then and the price action that has ensued. At this particular point in time, late January, a lot of people were still very hesitant. And I think at this point in time that we're saying, all right, this seems that it could potentially be in play. Now, we don't know if it's in play and we don't know what could happen. And that's why we're going to do our best to make sure that we're aware of the levels. We need to manage our risk around. This was very, very interesting how price came right into the resistance. We pointed out that resistance from 2 different levels, if you remember, in the last update on Saturday. And you can see price right now is consolidating right underneath that resistance. We need to close above it. We need to close above this area of here. It looks like yesterday we did close above. And it looks like that we're trading right below it right now in real time. We want to get some sustained price action above it and continue out over here. And then we'll look at what's next. We're still just below it on the close yesterday. That's okay. We're consolidating. Consolidating underneath resistance is very bullish. At this point in time, we could take the breakdown. If you know that we just touched over here, let me show you. We just touched this trend line over here. This is coming the FTX collapse, the US banking crisis, and then that same trend line was touched now during the SEC versus Binance and Coinbase litigation. And it looks like BlackRock news of them looking to launch a fund, a ETF, has sent all of a sudden Bitcoin out of this pullback and to new yearly highs. Question is, what are the risks below? If you extend this line out, this trend line, as long as this trend line continues to hold, we have very bullish price action. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to, from this angle over here, I'm just going to take this drop zone and move it up, right? As long as price stays above that, we could consolidate as far back, all the way back into that trend line before breaking out above here. And that would be quite bullish behavior. Now that we did make new yearly highs, we would like to see some type of an extension. But normally what happens, the price action around these levels, is you see like a lot of people leverage in as soon as like chasing the breakout. And then you see some, shakeouts before any continuation up. If we are able to continue up, I want to take a look at what we're targeting right now. And as we're doing that, I want to also extend this trend line out now. I'm just going to extend that trend line out over here so that we know as long as we stay above here, price action remains very bullish. Now, it could go the other way. It could go the other way in so much as that if we trade back below this trend line, let me go ahead and zoom out over here. This is a downward sloping channel. Breaking out over here to the upside, that gives us potential possibilities that we may be targeting the highlighted area over here, which is around $50,000, the 0.786 fib. That would be exciting, but we still have work to do. Tagging the new yearly high, not being able to regain this area of this trend line resistance, and being rejected over here, that's just as valuable for us as being able to break out and continue forward. So it's really not so much about having any type of expectations about what you believe is going to happen and then placing a trade around that, so much as watching the important levels and prices reaction around that. If we were to get a breakdown over here and come back in to test it, it would be very counter trend trade. I wouldn't be looking to take any type of short entries at this particular point in time. Momentum has returned strongly to the upside. That would be very counter trend. And a lot of people with that bearish bias have learned throughout this whole year that, just maintaining a bearish bias and trying to counter trend trade is not very lucrative. You want to trade with momentum. Now, if we were to be rejected here, roll over, and then take out this trend line, at that point in time, momentum has rolled over. You're trading with the momentum, and then you might look to attack with momentum on your side, a move into this trend line over here, because at that point in time, you're ahead of the game. If price were then not to hold this trend line and break it, you're way ahead. But up over here, even if you're rejected, that would be an aggressive counter trend trade. And I mean, why it's possible to make money like that, what you're looking to do is give yourself the greatest edge as possible. Layer edge upon edge upon edge. And then you become, so to speak, the casino. And trading against the trend is not a good long-term strategy. Breaking above over here opens up the next leg. I want to look at what that next leg might be over here. I want to look at some potential targets now that price has printed a new yearly high. It has resumed out of the breakout that we were looking for, and it came right into the area that we were looking for price to come into, right? Touched it exactly, came back, and now breaking above. We want to see price close above here. And then looking at the upside of what potentially we're targeting. We have a couple of different areas of interest. It's starting over here around 32,500. We have the beginning of some horizontal resistance. This is going to be a range. We're going to be looking at a range between 32,500 and all the way to 34,000. If I zoom out a little bit, let me go ahead and just zoom out and show you this trend line. I'm going to move it back down to the bottom here. And you can see it overlaps the trend line that's coming from this whole last summer, 2021, and then all the way down. And that trend line, right, is a clone trend line that I'm placing up over here. I showed you in a past video how that trend line also gives the structure of the market. You can see these touches over here that I'm briefly showing you just to give you a quick example. And you could see that that is, and it does throughout this whole area, you could find that. So I believe that that's an area of potential resistance that's coming in right now somewhere around 34,000. Now, that 34,000, I could also show you from a different perspective, and it's coming from here. And this is showing us where the ultimate last trend line breakout needs to occur for the actual bull market to be called, right? We're still in that correction. If you remember, we did this live on YouTube when we had over here in July 2020, the summer. We called the bull market breakout, the breakout, the retest, and then the resumption up. We need to clear this outer level, right? And what's neat about this trend line and the angle of that trend line, it goes all the way back the last 10 years, the last decade on Bitcoin, and it continues to show the structure of the market. And then we've added this line over here. This line over here, you could see is a clone trend line, and we have that resistance coming in. It's a little bit lower. It looks like that's coming in somewhere up right around 34,000 and downward sloping. So 34,000, it's an area that I think that we want to at least show that strength. And between 32,500 and 34,000, we would like to see this breakout. And assuming this breakout is able to hold and get above this line and continue up, we would like to see it targeting next at least 32,000 to 34,000. And if price is able to then consolidate a little bit, if price is able to pull back a little bit and then ultimately break out or even shoot through it, it's possible this time of cycle, right? You have some sharp moves up this time of cycle, and it's potentially possible that we could actually shoot pretty strongly up. If that happens, we want to look 2 levels of resistance above. This area between 32,500 and 34,000 is 1 level up. Don't forget, I'm just going to remind you, right? Bullish now that we've resumed out of the pullback. We're able to call 2 days before the pullback that likely a pullback was going to ensue. We're able to stay with it the whole time. And then as you saw last Saturday, be able to point out the perfect resumption out of it. If you look at CTM 2.0, you could see the trade it took out of it. I think you'd be able to see the trade. Yeah, I could zoom in over here. And you could see CTM 2.0, right? Holding an open position of 14%, taking the breakout before even the resistance. Very nicely timed once again. And I'm jumping back over here. And what I want to show you is the risk below, as long as we're above this bullish structure is looking pretty good. So upside targets, the next target above, if we break out above 34,000, this trend line, we have an area over here. It starts around just under 38,000. You could see the resistance that I'm showing. This was support. It should be resistance on the way up. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to extend this up a little bit. I'm going to extend this all the way up to, let's zoom out together. Let's take a look at this area together. And I'm looking over here at where price was forming this area of support. I think it's a little higher. It's a pretty big box. It's a pretty big area. But I would not be surprised to see a breakout of 34,000 be able to put into a big move into that drop zone over there. That's the next area that I would be targeting if we're able to get above the above resistance coming in 32,500 to 34,000, a breakout above that trend line, then we're going to be targeting this area over here. And it's hard to tell ahead of time whether or not price would be able to, just touch the bottom end of that resistance or even extend higher. We will find out if it does occur, if we get the continued movement to the upside. That's our video update for today. I would like to later in the week put out a video here on Ethereum to give you that type of perspective of what is occurring here as well. So do look out for that video. If you do not have the notifications on your YouTube, go ahead and hit that bell icon right now. Thanks for being here. Thanks for staying ahead, working this out together. Lots of love to you all. Have a beautiful day.